Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I, of course, am a Christian counselor. I want to make sure there's not a lot of kids in here. I'm a recovering sex and pornography addict. I began recovery in November of 1999. I became addicted to pornography in the summer of 1984. I was in 6th grade. And the pornography really, the internet really played a large part in really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of solidifying that addiction. It really is, and we're not going to talk deeply. I do a lot of presentations deeply about just pornography. We're not going to talk about just that issue. We'll talk about it in passing, but we're really going to just talk about the internet as a whole, and just how many other difficulties and issues kids can get into, and not just kids, but really, kids who have problems with the internet become adults who have problems with the internet, and kids who have problems with addiction become adults who have problems with addiction. And so if we can catch it when they're younger and really kind of squash it and start putting some changes in our lives now. Thank you, whomever turned on the air conditioning. I don't know what happened, but there's nice cooler in here. So that's a little bit about me. So when I speak about that, I'll give you information about, with some research, but I'll also give you some experiences. I'll give you some personal experiences, but I'll also tell you about a lot of the experiences I deal with in my private practice and when I talk to parents at school. I get phone calls from parents, about 3 a week, with dealing with issues of texting. They're on the cell phones, they're sending text messages back and forth. They're posting things on Facebook and MySpace, what they call the social networking sites, about wanting to deal with the kids about that. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to come a little closer so I can. Yes, ma'am. Is that all right? I think so. It's listed in the bulletin. I prefer a smaller group. I get to really, y'all can really pepper me with questions, and I'll pepper you with questions, because I learn as much from the people I talk to, and I hope the learning is reciprocal. So that's my contact information there. And I've also got business cards. If anybody wants them, they can have a business card. They can write me, email me, whatever you need. I do have a blog. I'm not as disciplined about blogging as I should. Apparently my nephew will send me an email and say, you need to put another post up, because he posts on his blog every day. I don't, you know what I mean? But that's the major difference between the teenagers, is that the generations now, they use the internet to maintain and build relationships. That's the major difference, is people from my generation and before, we use the internet to gather information, but they use the internet to relate. It's a totally different world that we're dealing with here. And so we're dealing with kids who are injured emotionally because they don't know how to maintain and create face-to-face relationships. They don't know how to deal with conflict face-to-face. And so they think that if they're having an issue or conflict with you, they can just turn you off like they do on MySpace or Facebook. They can, walk away. And that's not based in reality, because that's not the way life works. So that's my contact information there. These are the objectives. We're going to talk about the difficulties of the predator, a practical example of difficulty of a predator to track a child on the internet. We're going to discuss the 6 pitfalls or dangers of the internet. We'll discuss the 6 ways to protect your kids, and then we'll do a question and answer format. And hopefully we'll have enough time to get through that. What was told to me was about an hour, so about 3:45 will be, give or take, will be done, because some of you may want to do some other activities this afternoon, so we'll move forward. All right, how hard is it for a predator to track a child or a teen? I do this with my parents. My goal is not to scare, it's to inform and educate. So what I like to do is just talk to, excuse me for 1 second here, let me grab my presentation. It's easier for me just to have it in my hand. My goal is to inform, but some people get a little scared about this. And listen, the internet is not something to be scared about. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool, because I don't know about y'all, but when I was in school, when I was in college, we had to go to the library and do the little card catalog, and do the little, put the stuff on the little cards and then transfer that and type. Nowadays, a student can sit at the computer and go to, Britannica Encyclopedia. Well, they don't even have to have a CD-ROM anymore. Now it's all online. They can get everything that they need online. They can cite, and you cite references online differently now. They can write an entire paper. And I'm talking about a doctoral dissertation online. They can get everything they need online, and they don't have to step foot inside of a library. But that also means that same pipeline that brings wonderful information also brings garbage right into your front door. So we're going to talk about this. How hard is it for a predator to track a child or a teen? This is America Online, AOL, you've got mail. Maybe they don't do that. I know when I first got on the internet in the late 90s, I had America Online, and this is a chat room. And basically a chat room it's like a coffee shop, but it's what they call a virtual chat room where people can come in and talk about what's going on. And as you see here, this Foo 711, that's his login name, and Foo 711 again, and how old are you? 13 male, 14 female, all this right here. And hey, where are you at? Wherever. So I use this as an example. Okay, so I see this person over here, and I see this person right over here. And I say, I want to get to know who that person is. It starts with a target identification and a selection. So I see this person, and I'm this child molester or this predator, and I'm wanting to get this person. I'm intrigued by Amanda. I don't know much about her. Right down there, Amanda 01. So I want to find out more about her. There she is right there. And now remember, I don't have any special, and you can do this without special programs. This is all online. Anybody has access to this. All you have to do is learn how to do it. Most online or internet service providers provide user directories or system members identify others with similar interests and are nefarious. You like that word? Nefarious. Bum, bum, bum. In our nefarious but capable hands, we can look up the members, go to members, get a member profile. We continue to search for Amanda by checking her member profile. And this is all voluntary. People fill this out, right? So she filled out her member profile, and this is what we find about her. We type in her chat room name. We know it because we saw it on that listing on the right-hand column. Amanda 01. Well, there it is. Using the locate command, I can follow Amanda wherever she goes in cyberspace. And we use that word cyberspace for basically anything on the internet is cyberspace. So, there's her profile. That's her name. She wisely did not put where she lives or her date of birth or her sex, but we know Amanda, that's usually a female name. A marital status, she put none of your business. Collecting seashells, rollerblading English class, playing with my baby brother, computers, student, personal, blah, 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 blah. So, let's see what we find about Amanda. I can also email or instant message her by using the email command. After 2 minutes, we've determined that Amanda is most likely a female, child, likes seashells, rollerblading, and English class. Has a little brother that most likely answers to Billy Jr. or JR, and her valid email address. After 2 minutes. Using Deja News or Alta Vista, we can check for more information by searching news group postings. And these are old postings. I mean, there are other news groups now, but this right here, you basically can find anything that someone has written on the internet. If they posted it on a blog, it's all there. You can just search it. So you just type in a power search. Using the power search option, we continue the inquiry. Using Amanda's email address, I search for any of her news group postings. So I'm going to type in her author. I want to type in her name because I know the information. I know her email address. And I just, look what I find. I now know how many messages Amanda has posted, when and where the messages were posted, and the text of each message. Isn't that crazy? So what's she looking for? Beanie Babies, so we know she's a collector. Now, adults can be collectors too, but based upon that information, I'm already thinking she's a child. Look, there's the text. That's an email she posted, and I have access to it. That scare you? Listen, I am not one of, and I get emails from people all the time about the Catholic Church is doing ABC, the Masons are over here doing this. I'm not one of these people. I think that's a waste of my brain, and it's a waste of your brain energy to be thinking about all this. I'm going to focus on building my relationship with Jesus Christ so His Holy Spirit can tell me where to go, what to do when the time hits. But I do believe this. I believe that the internet is going to play a vital role in whatever happens. Because you go to Walmart and there are TV screens at Walmart. People can now get, television on their cell phones. I think the internet and all technology is definitely going to play a vital part in this when they, start tracking people. News groups are electronic bulletin boards. So look. So now we have her phone number. Now she gets home probably after 5:30, and you could talk to Amanda or Sue. You think that's a mom, maybe? Legal guardian, somebody? So, within 12 minutes, I know. Amanda's her first name. She is a young girl who likes Beanie Babies, rollerblading's in English class, has a baby brother named Billy Jr., has a mom or sister named Sue, a good idea when she's at home. She lives on the East Coast, her home telephone number. Within 12 minutes, we know that information. Let's move on. Now remember, this is somebody who's looking to hurt somebody. This is somebody who's looking to do something bad to a child. There are many online services that allow for searches. My technology right now is not working. There are many online... there we go. Oops, too far. There we go. There are many online services that allow for searches using as little as a phone number. And this is called a reverse search. I use it all the time when I'm trying to track down people I graduated with from high school or from academy. I'll put in their phone number, and you can go to, I use whitepages.com, and you just type, y'all do, you know what I'm talking about? It's awesome. You get the phone number, and then what it'll do, and then people search will come up automatically, and it'll say, these are the last 5 addresses, and you go, okay, I know she used to live in so-and-so, well, that's a so-and-so address one, and then you can pay $19.95 or whatever and get that person's, information. What can I find out about from her telephone number? Well, there's her phone number. Let's see what we can find out about her. I bet Amanda, this is Amanda's last name, because that's the zip code, that's the area code. I bet that's her last name. She lives in Maryland. All right, 410. So let's see what else we find. Now remember, before the internet, this would have been not possible. And as a private investigator, I have a friend who's a private investigator in North Carolina. He loves the internet because he doesn't have to go to records or databases. He does it all. He does it in his bathrobe in the morning time. Someone emails him the information, and he just does it, and he charges a boatload of money for the knowledge because people don't know how to do this. He says, good news, most of these services will allow you to change or eliminate your personal data from directories. And she did. She did not list. That's a good thing. But look, at the bottom there, most of them will allow you to be unlisted. Click on that. You really need to, if you're doing this, you really need to put this on there. You don't want people finding out this information. So area code lookup results. What can I find about using Amanda's last name? Well, let's see. You can go to White Pages, Yellow Pages, the website directory, or email addresses. I'm going to look at and see the geographical location is Maryland, Annapolis, Baltimore, Rockville, and Salisbury Stake. With each additional piece of information, I can perform additional searches. So the more I get, the more I can perform. And as we go forward, I bet I can find out where she lives. Now we're getting specific. Remember, we're narrowing. So using her last name and her first initial, or her first name, look at that. She lives in 618 Hammerstone Road, Laurel, Maryland. Do you? That's freaky. It gets better. I found her. Now, things get really interesting. I'm not familiar with Laurel. Let's see if I can get some better location information. Remember, this is all online, free of charge. So I go to map, click on map. One click, and I am there. Wow. Plan a route. How do I get there from Chicago? There it is. GPS is wonderful, but once again, any technology can be used for evil. Gunpowder is a wonderful thing, right? It does a lot of wonderful things, but it can, you put a bullet in front of it or a cannonball, bad things happen. So, step-by-step directions, turn-by-turn directions, and I'm there. I wonder where she goes to school, because I don't want to catch her at home, because, she's not going to be at home when her parents are at home. She's not going to be at home by herself, because we know that she's going to be at home after 5:30, which means her parents don't trust her at home, or maybe she's too young. So I want to catch her between school and home. Now, this is, by the way, I want to say this to you. I used to work with pedophiles. I used to work with people who did this to kids, and getting into the mind of somebody who does this I had to stop doing it. I couldn't handle it, because it started getting into, not that I became a pedophile, but I just couldn't. I felt dirty after I was done at work, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I wonder where she goes to school. If the school posts student pictures on its webpage, I even could get her a picture so I know what she looks like. Within 45 minutes, I've learned she's a female child. Her full name is Amanda Welch. The email address is Amanda. She likes seashells, rollerblading, and English class. Has a baby brother named Billy. Collects or trades Beanie Babies. Full names of her mother, father, and brother. Her home telephone number. She's probably home by 5:30 weekdays, or mom arrives home from work then. She lives at 618 Hammerstone Drive in Laurel, Maryland. Specific directions to her home. What public schools are nearest to her home? That's a scary thing. So, what's good about the internet? Well, you get lots of information, communication, news, email, shopping. I know when the hurricanes were happening, I was able to interact with my grandmother and my family who lives in Puerto Rico, and they were able to kind of say, hey, this is what happened last night, and all their phones were down, but they still had bandwidth, and I was able to get messages. So the internet is a wonderful thing. I don't want you to think that it's a bad thing. It's not. But you need to be aware of what it can do and how to protect yourself and how to protect your children and your grandchildren. The benefits outweigh its risks, especially for urban kids. But there are dangers. 1 in 5 children who use chat rooms have been approached by a pedophile online. And when I use that term pedophile, do you all know what I mean, a pedophile? Okay, I just want to be sure. 2 in 5 abductions of victims aged 15 to 17 were due to the internet. 76% of victims in net-initiated sexual exploitation cases were 13 to 15 years of age. 75% were girls. Most cases progressed to face-to-face sexual encounters. 93% of the face-to-face sexual meetings involved illegal sex. Now this is a 2004 statistic. These are old statistics. Problematic content, not just pornography. Now see, everybody just talks about pornography. That's not the only content that's the problem on the internet. There's also sexual content or sexual material. There's gore. There's a lot of hate sites. Probably one of the ones that a friend of mine emailed it to me, and excuse me for using this language, but this is the name of the site. This is put out by a staunch Christian church, not an Adventist church. It's called GodHatesFags.com. So we've got, Christian churches kind of propagating a lot of this hatred as well. Drug use and guns and violence. Whenever I go online to try to research my kids, one of the things I do the first time I go into the classroom is I ask the kids 8 questions, and one of those questions is, do you have a MySpace or a Facebook? And a lot of them will give you their information. And I ask them, I say, hey, this is confidential. I'm not going to share it with anybody. And they write the information down, and the first thing I do when I get back to my office, and I look them up, and a lot of them will have pictures of them, I'm hoping, with fake guns. I'm talking about 6th graders, wearing the gang stuff and doing the hand stuff, and Christian kids, Adventist kids, not all Adventist kids, and not all Christians, but sometimes they have that information, and sometimes the stuff that these kids post are inappropriate pictures, and that's when I pick up the phone and I call mom and dad and say, you need to go on. And about 60% of the time, the parents say, either I'm aware of it, it's not that big a deal, or no, my son or daughter doesn't do that. And I'll say, do you have access to the computer? Go on. And I stay on the phone with them. And one lady dropped the phone. She was so surprised. And that same day, she was in my office, and we were having a meeting with her daughter. Other dangers, chat rooms, instant messaging, Online communities, social networking sites like MySpace and Facebook, and I think there's one called Xanga. I just found out about it about 2 months ago. Is that Xanga, Xanga? And there's a lot more than that. There's some social networking sites that are Christian, and I go to a site and I enjoy looking at a site called stupidvideos.com. But you know what I found on stupidvideos.com? There's a lot of Christian sites on there too that they put the gospel in there too, which I think is a neat way to do that. So, and a lot of Christians will do Facebook and YouTube and stuff, which I think is a wonderful way to spread the gospel. They break up, like Doug Batchelor, an Amazing Facts did it. He broke up a lot of his sermons into like 2 or 3 minute portions, and there's a whole series, and you can go online into YouTube and type of Doug Batchelor and bring his stuff up, which I think is a wonderful way to do that. Anything goes unedited. Children can self-publish, which is a very scary thing, because this is the equivalent of growing up. If your child could go to every bulletin board across the city and post inappropriate pictures of themselves or what they were thinking that night, that's what it's like. But let me ask you a question. Why do our kids do this? They want to connect. We're built for connection. And people say our kids are disconnected. No, they're not. They're just not connected to you. Well, they're connected to somebody, whether it's, Chris Brown or, rap star. I used to listen to Run DMC and Beastie Boys when I was growing up, and I was connected to that music. Music was an important part of my life, and these kids, are connected to a lot of other things, and a lot of what they're connected to is not appropriate. Peer-to-peer file sharing, illegal, indecent, infectious. There's a reason why they call it the viral video. You know what that means, viral video? I get a video. It's funny. I forward it on to somebody else. It gets forwarded to me. I forward it to 20 people in my address book. They forward it to 20 people, and before you know it, it's this multiplication thing. So what do? Well, you position computers such that the screen is easily visible, and guess what? Don't let kids have computers in their rooms. Mom and Dad, you're so old-fashioned. So, if it keeps you alive, and that's your job, by the way, to protect your children, to keep them alive, put it in the living room. Publish well, I don't know what happened to number 2. That's really freaking me out there. The number 2 is gone. Interesting. That's no good. It's on my PowerPoint. It's on my publish a family pledge, and I've got a copy of the family pledge. And if you email me, I'd be happy to forward that to you. That family pledge is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I wish I would have come up with it. It's a wonderful form. It's a one-page form, and you can type it up. It'll take you 10 minutes to type up, and you can change it and address certain things. Copy it. Listen, because as your job as parents is to teach and train your kids for present and future, and everything that you do, you should be tying it to present and future consequences. And in real life, they have to sign contracts. This is no different. You get them to sign a contract, get them to sign a family pledge. And basically the family pledge, and we'll go over it in a little bit, know what your children are doing. I hope and pray that you don't let people come into your home and you don't know who they are. I remember growing up watching The Cosby Show. Anybody watch The Cosby Show? I still watch The Cosby Show on Nick at Night. There was an episode where Bill Cosby sat down and pulled out a chair, and his daughter's 12 or 13-year-old daughter was getting all upset. She'd roll her eyeballs, and he said, yeah, I want to get to know this little boy that you're getting to know. And she was like, Dad, he goes, sit down, you're not going anywhere. He goes, I'm going to date your date. And he proceeded to ask him, a bazillion questions. Now, in the South, I'm a transplant to the South, but my wife is a Southerner, and she says, who are his people? I like that term. Who are his people? Where are they from? What do they do? Ask the questions. I hope that you won't let your children come in. It's the same thing. If they're listening to something, if they're watching something, what is it about? Sit down and watch something with them. Now, I ask the kids, and what they're 2 or 8. I ask the kids 8 questions, and 2 or 3 of those questions are related to what do they watch on TV, their 3 most favorite movies, and I find out what they're watching. Now, I don't watch the entire thing, and I go to MTV and VH1 and BET and Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and Nick Jr., all those things. And by the way, did you know that Nickelodeon is owned by MTV? Yeah, scary. They just find a way to mass market it little by little. And you find out what they're doing. Educate yourself around issues of online safety. And listen, number 6, lead by example. If the only time your kids see you on the internet is when they're getting out of bed, to get a drink of water or something, and you're having to shut the computer off, then you might need to make some changes and install an internet filter. Now there are tons and tons and tons of filters. And basically a filter that's what it's for. It's used to filter, to pull out certain things that don't come into your home. So you can install an internet filter. Internet filters are computer programs that make undesirable content like pornography unavailable to the computer user. Installing an internet, there are tons of filtering softwares. safefamilies.techmission.org/tutorials/weeblocker.php is a wonderful, and by the way, if anybody wants this PowerPoint, I didn't print because if I were to print all these, it would have been a lot of pages for the conference. So if you email me, I'd be happy to forward this information to you. I'm not the kind of person that gets all selfish, because a lot of what I'm presenting, I did not write. I doctored up a lot of these, but a company called Safe Families wrote this, and I like what they had to say. So you can go to any information. If you're not sure about the kind of web filters, two really, really good websites to go to is family.org. Dr. James Dobson, Focus on the Family, is a really good website. And another website is Family Life Today. And I don't think that's the name of the website. But Barbara and Dennis Rainey, anything that they say is good is going to be really good. I don't buy anything separate. We use Earthlink, and my brother who deals with computers for a living, the reason why we use Earthlink, he says that their service has the most filters, so we have the highest parental controls on our filters, and we don't buy anything separate. We just use the parental controls. And most ISPs or internet service providers will have web filtering software already included in your monthly, so you don't have to pay anything extra for it. And TechMission actually has a web blocker that you can download for free. It's free. It covers most basic blocking and has logging function, so you can actually see who's logging in, when they're logging out. It does not filter email, instant messages, or peer-to-peer file sharing. Requires that Windows XP users switch to the old login screen and disable fast user switching. It's a good free option for protecting children on dial-up and broadband connections. And broadband, I don't know if anybody has dial-up anymore. I did speak to a lady from our church who lives in like an assisted living, and she pays like $3 or $4 a month and has the dial-up, and she loves it. And she's the only person I know who still has dial-up. When I switched from dial-up to broadband, I was like, I heard the bum 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 hallelujah, because you click on it and it pops up, which is good and it's bad, because at least you click on something and you think better of it, you can go backwards. But nowadays you click on it and it's up with the broadband. If free is the pros, parental controls and internet service providers. If you have AOL, MSN, or Earthlink, it's free. If you have AOL, MSN, Earthlink, or other ISP with parental controls, it provides different filtering levels by screen name. So I went on my wife's and my daughter's and my own, and I just cranked up the levels as high as I possibly could. And anybody who says, well, you know what, don't crank it up too high because I need to do research. Well, the kind of research that if you're using words that can be filtering out, you don't need to be looking at those things. Now, if you're a plastic surgeon and you're doing a lot of breast augmentation surgery, then it's not going to let you do it. But you shouldn't be looking up the word breast at all. Do you see what I'm saying? So whenever people use that excuse, to me, that's a huge red flag. I think, oh, okay, you don't want to put parental controls. We need to talk. Because I used to use those same excuses. Remember I told you I was an ex-addict. Praise God, not anymore. Praise God. Oh, that was weird. Some controls can be too restrictive, frequently blocked, should be allowed. Generally does not filter peer-to-peer file sharing. Generally not effective for broadband. So best option for protecting children if you have dial-up ISP with parental controls. Option 3, to pay internet filtering. Now there are a lot of companies. Generally provides filtering from peer-to-peer file sharing, IM, chat, and email. This is the most comprehensive right here, the one that you pay for. Of course, that makes sense. Some products block more effectively than TechMission's free product. Cons, $30 to $70, and most have annual renewal costs. Only works on one computer in a home. So you basically have to pay for a site license. So if you want it, you're going to have to pay that times, if you have 2 or 3 computers, you have to pay that times 2 or 3. Provides most effective protection for protecting children for both dial-up and broadband connections. Now, this is Safe Eyes, out of all the ones that I've seen, Safe Eyes I'm most aware of, Net Nanny I'm most aware of, and Cyber Sitter, those three. I don't know about these other ones, but I know that Safe Eyes is good. In fact, I have everybody who I talk to who comes to see me for pornography or sexual addiction, I send them to Safe Eyes because Safe Eyes is a really, really good one. Cyber Sitter and Net Nanny are good as well. McAfee, anything from McAfee is going to be good. It's got to be good because we use McAfee on our computers for all kinds of information. But there it is right there. That's the information for the ratings. Content is filtered automatically for all users and cannot be bypassed. This is for a pre-filtered internet service provider. Can be somewhat effective with addressing adults with addictive tendencies. Now that's a nice way of saying people that have sex and pornography addiction issues. May block legitimate content for adults and requires calling ISP to temporarily disable. So if you get this, understand, and usually this comes at it'll look like a cable box that you plug into your computer, and everything is literally run through there. And what happens is at some offsite, someone will be looking through all of the stuff on the internet, which is a huge task, and they'll see, okay, this site is okay and this site's not okay, and you can only access what they say is okay. Does that make sense? So to you, if you wouldn't know any better, it would just be like you're just going through the internet, but you're only getting what they approve of. It's almost as if you're giving your child, you're saying, I'm going to set before you carrots, broccoli, or cauliflower, make your choice, as opposed to saying to your child, well, just get whatever you want. They can only choose those three choices. But to them, they don't know that there's chocolate and everything else out here. It's only these three. Does that make sense? And that's the pre-filtered. Like all filters, will not block all inappropriate sites. Guess what? Because people are creative. And, they will misspell Nickelodeon and misspell Disney. They do that to our children, which is mind-boggling to me that they would do that, but they do. Good for protecting children and somewhat helpful for adults and dial-up users. Once again, these are some pre-filtered ISPs, pkfamily.com, and they all cost money. surfonthesafeside.com, setting captives free, one heart at a time.com. This is actually, this one here, Setting Captives Free, is a company that I've worked with in the past. They are, they do specifically for people with sex and pornography addictions. That's, one of the things that they use as a solution. A filtering router effectively filters all computers in a home, more difficult to disable than client software. It does require a broadband connection, or like what they call a cable internet, or I think what's called a T1. Is that what they call it? A T1 line, which I think is faster than cable. It's expensive? Okay. My brother has that. Of course, he has a big server in his home too, so that's why he has the T1. Can be more difficult to bypass filter when it blocks a legitimate site, requires understanding of how to set up a home network, which once again, that's what he does for a living. I wouldn't even begin to know what to do. But it is a good solution for protecting children and adults and families with multiple computers and a broadband connection. And there's the summary chart. And once again, it is extremely, there's a lot of information I'm sharing with you. When you get home this evening or tomorrow, send me an email, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to forward it to you. You can look at it at your leisure. The one I like right here, out of all of these right here, I like the X3 Watch. If you go to x3watch.com or xxxchurch.com, you can download this one here. And that is, it's not so much a filter as it is what they call an internet accountability software. It keeps a track of the websites you go to, and it will send those websites to one or two people as accountability partners, and then they can confront you. I use that on my computer as well. Covenant Eyes is a really good one as well. And so those two I know. These other ones I'm not so sure of, but then again, check it out and see if you like it. And if not, you can do it month by month. But filtering software is not enough. It's not enough. You've got to do other things. Computer placement. Place computer in high traffic room. Living room, many people build their homes around a dining room nowadays, or what they call a great room. Put it in the kitchen, put it in the great room. Screen must be easily visible when passing by. That's the key. Laptops for children and teens are very, very, very high risk. They're extremely high risk. Use, sample, and modify as necessary. The family pledge, it's an agreement between children and parents on computer use. Talk through all points in safety pledge and get agreement from children. Should be posted by the computers and signed by all children in the family. And by the way, I want to say this. You need to also put some consequences in there. If they do something inappropriate, it's not enough for you to take the computer away from them. There needs to be some other consequences. There's the Internet Safety Pledge right there. And we'll go through each one of these. You can see it a little bit better. This is the first one. I will not look at, download, or copy inappropriate or questionable material. What does that mean? Well, you need to let them know what that means. You need to sit down and explain it with them. If I'm not sure that something is okay, I'll ask first. If I see something inappropriate or if I experience anything online that upsets me, I will tell my parents. I will not keep online secrets from my parents. Number 2, I will not give any personal information like my real name, address, age, phone number, school passwords, or appearance to anyone online or fill in online forms about myself without my parents' or guardians' permission. I will never send pictures without specific permission. And I'm telling you, kids do this all the time. Number 3, I will not arrange to meet anyone in person that I find out about anything online without getting my parents' permission and bringing an adult with me to a public place. I will not arrange to have a phone conversation with someone I meet online without my parents' permission. I understand that people may not be who they say they are online. And I know that's, you and me understand that, but kids don't. They really don't. They take the world at face value. That doesn't make us jaded or cynical. It makes us realists. People are out to hurt kids. Number 4, I will always be courteous in how I communicate to others. And I'll say this about that. I find, mostly with my females, is when I get them into a room, and I do this about 2 times a day, I'll have what I call conflict management or mediation, and I teach them the skills. They cannot deal with conflict face to face. They just don't have the skills. But they will, as soon as they leave, they'll go to the bathroom, pull their cell phone out, and they'll text something inappropriate to another little girl. They'll threaten them online. But when I get them in, they just can't do it. They can't interact with one another. And the reason why is because they think that, they can do and say what they want to online. Well, guess what? It has real life consequences. And for some reason they think, well, they can do what they want to at home, but it doesn't follow them into the school. And it does follow them into the school. Because I don't know about y'all, but growing up, when I threatened somebody in my neighborhood, guess where they went to school? In the same school I did. And if I had bad feelings with somebody at the neighborhood, they were going to come threaten me or get in my face, or one of their friends or one of their relatives was going to come say something to me. It's the same thing with online stuff. If you're in a town and you all go to the same school and you do something at home that's not in school, it's going to follow you at school. And that's what you need to let your kids know, that stuff will follow them. I will not use bad language, insult people, or be rude. I will respect the privacy of my friends and my family. I will not purchase products or services online without my parents' approval and help. And this is all part of that Internet Safety Pledge. I will not respond to email or an instant message from someone I do not know. That's a biggie. Number 7, I will follow my parents' or guardians' guidelines for when I can use the computer or for how long and what programs and games I may or may not use. Nowadays, once again, you just don't need to buy video games. Nowadays, you can just go online to different websites. My nephew does it all the time. Go. My nephew used my computer. He came to visit me. He used my computer for a day. And when I opened it up when you open up on the start menu, all the programs you use, there was like pinball and all this other stuff. Stuff I didn't even know was on my computer. He had it up. And I was like, Josh, I need you to get, he's 13, by the way. Josh, I need you to get us, if you go here and go there and do this. I was like, it's crazy. If I am under the age of 16, I will not use chat rooms, and I will only use instant messengers programs to communicate with those of my parents or guardians have approved of. I mean, this is a very comprehensive safety pledge. I will not install software programs without getting permission. I understand that peer-to-peer file sharing programs like Kazaa, LimeWare, or BearShare are not allowed. I will not use the computer to do anything illegal, including illegal downloading of software, music, or movies. These rules apply wherever I am, at home, a friend's house, school, or the library. I love the safety pledge. I understand that violating this pledge may result in loss of computer access, and I will accept these consequences. And once again, retype that. Add your consequences to what's appropriate. If you're not sure what to take away, think about your child. What do they like to do? Shut them down. My dad used to take away my CD player and my tapes, or my tape player and my tapes, and he took my door off my hinges. Yeah, because I got in his face. This is my room. You can't tell me what to do. He said, okay. I came back the next day, and the door and the facing was like gone. That's old school, right? Yeah. It is good stuff. It is good stuff. He said, don't ever forget, little boy. So he said to me, I was 21. Little boy, I'll put you down. And I was like, never cross them again. Monitor, train, and direct children's online activity by surfing together. Know your kids' favorite sites. My daughter and I get together and we go to pbskids.com and we play on the little PBS. It's educational, and she doesn't know she's being educated. And by the way, everything on the internet is educational. You hearing me? Either for good or for evil. It's all educational. It's all educational. And by beholding, we become changed. Amen? If they continue seeing these things little by little, they're going to do them. How do you think, Ted Bundy started? He didn't just decide to rape and murder women. He decided to start looking at little things little by little. Introducing the cool stuff. NetSmartKids.org is a really, really cool one. A really cool website. And by the way, a lot of the ISPs now, the internet service providers, with ours, Earthlink, there's a whole section for parents and kids. And you can click on it, and there's a little video that pops up, and someone talks to you about internet safety and stuff. But you can click on it, and they'll have like 10 or 12 different websites that parents and kids can go to together, which is really neat. This falls under what we talked about before, doing stuff that they like to do and interacting with them and learning about their world, however strange it sounds. I know. It's different, but this is what they're into. This is what you got to go to get to know them. Directing kids' activities. Change your home page. For computers or usernames used mainly by children, set their home pages to a kid-friendly search engine. And you can do that. And they can't get out of it. You can do that. Ask Jeeves for Kids, which is a really cool one. Your Hooligans is neat. One Key, Kids Click, and Education World. Out of all those, I haven't been to Education World. My wife may have, because she homeschools our kids, so we use the internet a lot in our home. And we only have one computer. I don't believe that everybody in their family needs to have a computer. That's a dangerous thing. We have one computer, and it's at a central point. It's right off of our bedroom, where if we're doing whatever, I can just go like this. And the rule is, you're in the room, the door doesn't stay closed. And guess what? The rule for me, in fact, the rule was made for me by my wife, because I'm an ex-addict. That's part of accountability. I don't like it, but that's the consequence of a choice I've made. So that door stays open. If it's good for me, it's good for my daughter. And my daughter knows that. And I'll come in sometimes when they're taking a nap, and my daughter will wake up and she'll go, Daddy, open the door. She's 6. What do you want? That's what 6-year-olds do. Monitor, train, and direct children's online activity. There's the key right there. Because you can't always do this. You can't always do this, because someday they're going to be gone, and you need to train them by surveillance. See how sneaky she is right there? Dun, dun, dun. She's got her little fake glasses with the nose and the mustache. Or as my daughter says, mustache. I don't know where she got that from. Mustache. You can learn what they're doing by reviewing the history, logging from filter, and you can check recent documents, and I'll show you how to do all that. And this website's a wonderful website, techmission.com, or you can just go, and I'll show you. It's really simple. You go to history, you go to favorites, and you go to history, and you go to today, and you click on today. Whoop. And you can see what they've been going to. It shows you all the different websites. Settingcaptivesfree.com stuff. And if you go, let me see if I've got it here. It should be on here. You see this right here? Can y'all see that little I keep wanting to call it a logo. It's called an icon. Thank you, Catholic Church. It's called an icon. You can look at the activity logs from the filter, and you can see everything that they've done. Now, this is from a filter. This is okay, but I prefer to go through the history log. And notice right here, out of all these right here, marriageromance.com, and look what happened. It blocked something. It wasn't sure, but it listed it anyway. Files with objectionable material, email from friends or spammers, file sharing programs, portable devices, CDs, DVDs, jump drives. You know what a jump drives are? What they call them, little thumb drives, those little bitty, little teeny ones. Nowadays they have the little head that inserts in and out, that pops in and out, and you stick it into a thing. I love them because I used to carry the 3.5-inch discs, and now I carry 4 of those, and I carry everything I've ever done since graduate school on there. It's there, and I keep it with me. And camera drives as well. So you go to the start. You know what I'm talking about when I say start? At the bottom of your computer screen, on the bottom left-hand corner, it says start. You click on that. And then you go to My Recent Documents. And you can check the documents that they're opening. Nowadays, if you go to Word, it'll have it, the box will pop up on the right-hand side. It takes like 1/4 of the page, and you'll see, it'll see the documents that you've been opening, that you've most recently opened. It'll have them on there. You can do that. And see, they opened up a brochure, and it looks like that's a Word document, a Word document, Word document, Word document, Word document. Look down here. Busted. Educate yourself around issues of online safety. Once again, out of all the websites I've gone to, this is probably one of the best websites, the safefamilies.techmission.org, because it is a Christian organization. Now, they don't say blatantly, we're Christian. It's a Christian organization, but they've got a lot of really good information. They've got a manual. They've got a recorded word chart. It's online. You don't have to pay for one thing. It's all online. You click the little thing, the TV screen pops up, and you can watch it. Go through all of this here. Parents, see, they've got it for home, parents, pastors, nonprofits, software resources, and see, they've got a whole section here on recovery. It really is a wonderful website. And this is the one I take all my clients to. Whether they be people at school or whether they be in private practice, I send them to this website because it really is a wonderful website. Very comprehensive. And then lastly, lead by example. We talked about this morning. You've got to lead by example. Secondhand smut can have damaging effects just like secondhand smoking. Your children are watching and learning from you. They really are. What you say, what you do, what you don't say, what you don't do, they're watching. And how were you first exposed to pornography? Research shows that 76%, more than 3/4 of people who were exposed to pornography were first exposed by their parents. Walking in on them, once again, they didn't have the internet. Walking in as a magazine, finding a magazine when you're cleaning or doing whatever. And that's how they did it. Sexually provocative material sends a message and incites curiosity. Of course it does, because it's a drive that God put into each and every one of us. That's why it's called a drive. It's a sex drive. Just like the two most powerful drives are the sex drive, and you'd be amazed what the second one is. It's not the will to live. It's a drive to learn. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's what research shows. We're meant to want to learn new information. And it's a powerful, powerful thing. But guess what? It's going to incite curiosity. An average age of our first exposure to pornography in the United States is age of 11. That's 6th grade, 5th, 6th grade. What happens is when you and me look at pornography, we go, oh, that's inappropriate. But when a child looks at pornography, they don't have a reference point. They don't have a context in which to place it in. So that becomes their template for appropriate sexuality. Does that make sense? And everything that they see is going to be based off of that. You remember your first love? The first person you went out with, the first person you dated? In a sense, that becomes your template for all other romantic relationships. The same thing with this. If they come across something, that can become their template. That's why you have so many people with fetishes. You know what a fetish is? They need to look at a foot, or they need to look at an arm or a finger to have an orgasm, to have a sexual release. Because something happened when they were younger, and that's what they paired sexual release with. Yeah. Do you protect your children from being exposed to videos, DVDs, video games, radio, music, or television you may be viewing that may be inappropriate for children? See, there's the key. You've got to make changes in your own life, and a lot of parents want to make changes. They want to put all the filters in, but they don't want to make changes themselves. And if you do that, your kids are going to find out. Seeing your internet history or spyware installed on your computer from visiting inappropriate websites, your kids will catch it. Finding inappropriate magazines and books at your house, material at school, libraries, or houses, and friends and relatives who may have open access to inappropriate materials. By the way, public libraries don't have, it's against the law for them to put controls on their computers, and you need to be aware of that. It's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. The kids who can't do stuff at ARC, because we have at our public school, we've got tons of, apparently there's a web filter called Barracuda, which is a very good web filter. I know how to get around it because I had a student tell me. So I get around it at school, plus I've also got administrative login rights and I can, do other things, but I had a student tell me, he showed me how to get around it at school. 6th grader. He knew about how to get around it at the public school from the age 3rd grade. So that's like 9 years old. But the kids, what they do is when they can't, get online at school, they'll go to the public library and they'll do all the craziness of the public library. Because by law, the government says that they can't put a filter because it should be, it's appropriate. For some reason, they think it's appropriate for somebody next to you to be looking at pornography or child pornography right next to your child. So if your child goes to the library, you need to be sure that you're either with them or that they're trustworthy enough to not be looking at stuff on the internet. Because guess what? They may not look at it, but they may walk by, and the human eye, once that image is burned into the brain, it's there for life. Are you catching me? It's there for life. And once that image goes into the brain, guess what happens? The brain releases a little endorphin. It releases a little this, a little that. All those wonderful feel-good chemicals, the things that are like methamphetamines and cocaine and heroin. It's harder for someone to get off pornography addiction than it is for someone to get off cocaine or heroin because it's meant to glue. It's meant to glue one another. That's why it's so dangerous. So you've got to be sure that you protect your kids. Let's talk about social networking. What is social networking? It's a term used to describe a fairly recent breed of websites, also referred to as online communities. See, I don't like that term, online community, but that's what it is. I mean, there are some people who, I was watching a show the other day, and they were making fun of online communities. This person had passed away, and he was part of this online community, and they got together and played poker online. And all his friends came out after he had passed away, and they were all sitting around the poker table, and they all looked at each other, and they opened up their computers. And they were sitting across from each other. But that's the only way they knew how to interact was with a computer. And now they were poking fun at online communities, but it really does bring into a situation where you lose those face-to-face personal skills. You just lose those skills of being polite and look somebody in the eyeball when you talk to them and wait for them to finish talking. And they lose all those things because if they want to shut you off, they'll just shut you off. Whether you're talking or not, they'll just shut you off. And they think that translates to personal face-to-face communication, and it doesn't, because a child who does that is a rude child. And I deal with them every day. They have very little to no interpersonal skills. I blame partly online communities and the parents that aren't stopping it. These sites generally enable their subscribers to post a journal and various forms of media content, to generate and maintain relationships with other participants, and to engage in discussions around common interests with others. Some of the most popular social networks in the U.S. are MySpace, Xanda, LiveJournal, Black Planet, Mi Gente, Asian Avenue, Bolt, High Five, Facebook, and Friendster. These sites are immensely popular with teens and young adults and have become an integral part of their lives. Much like television was for their parents, social networks or online communities offer great opportunities for self-expression, relational support, new experiences, helpful information, and just plain fun, but they can also be a very negative thing as well. What are the risks? Objectionable content, overexposure. They need to be concerned not only with their children that might see and hear, but also what they may present. Teens can make unwise decisions about what they post online, and that's probably the number one reason why I get phone calls from parents, because a parent will stumble across something. And what I found is what kids are doing now, they're making a website, they're making a Facebook for their parents to see, and then they're making one for their friends to see. Kids are smart. They're not stupid. And then contact with predators. I mean, think about it. If I was a child molester, a place like Facebook or MySpace, I'd go crazy. Because here they are right in front of me. They're presenting themselves. I get to know what they're thinking about. Their deepest, darkest thoughts. They want to share with mom and dad, but they'll post it online for the world to see. Now, I can't understand it. I really can't. But they're looking for connection. They're looking for connection. And then contact with other inappropriate adults and businesses. Various segments of the sex industry, legal and otherwise, have a presence in social networking sites, often to recruit customers and workers. Minors should not have direct contact with such sex professionals. And I don't like that term, sex professional, and organizations, but it does happen. In some cases, teens who become victims of sex trafficking or to be persuaded to provide sexually explicit pictures or video for pay. I dealt with 2 8th graders just this week, 2 beautiful, beautiful females. One is mixed. Her mom is from Asia somewhere, I don't know, Vietnamese I think, and dad is African American. Beautiful little girl, but looks like she's 16 and 17. She's 13, 14, and she came to me. Thank God. She came to me with a page, with an email, where somebody was offering to pay her $500 if she posted a picture of herself, and she gave them a picture. And now it was the terminology, and she had circled it, or either she or her parents had circled it, and it said, questionable picture. And that's what it said on there. And she said, Mr. Miranda, what does this mean? And the hairs on the back of my head stood up, and I said, hang on. And I went and closed my door. And on the inside, I'm screaming, and I'm praying, and on the outside, I'm trying to stay calm, because if I freak out, she's going to bolt. She's gone, right? She was already nervous. So I said to her, sweetie, let's do some research on this. So I went online, did some research, come to find out. This was somebody who was somewhere in California, and they're based in 3 places. A lot of the pornographers are based in Miami, they're based in Atlanta, or they're based in California. You would think New York City, right? But they're not. Miami, Atlanta, California. This person was out of California. And I called, and call. It was a 1-900 number, was the number. And I said, 1-900 number. Hit the hit speaker. Hey, lover. Turned it off. I said, sweetie, let me take care of this for you. And I took it and ran it through the paper shredder. Wah. I said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I said, these people wanted to take advantage of you. And I said, before you knew it, they were going to come get you. You'd have disappeared. Your parents would have known where you were, and you would have been on a milk carton somewhere. But that's what they do. They hook them. And what teenagers don't want $500? I mean, if I was a teenager, I'd want $500. I mean, take a picture of myself, it's easy. But, if you're a pornographer, $500 is chump change to you. Set rules concerning social networking sites. Never reveal personal information online. Educate your child on the dangers of revealing personal information. Ensure that your child knows not to post any personal information in his or her profile or the content of his or her web space. Other than the obvious, this includes email addresses, instant message contact information, sports teams, places frequented. By the way, the best psychologists are pedophiles. 2 or 3 of the pedophiles that I worked with, you know what they did all day? They read psychology and counseling books. Because they wanted to learn how to get into the heads of these kids. And it's amazing what they could find out from 1 or 2 little things. Follow website age restrictions. Most sites require users to be 13 and older. To get on MySpace, you have to be 14 or older, which means a lot of my 6th graders are already lying to get online. You have to be 14 or older. Discuss the dangers of communicating with strangers online. And that's what I do. I show them that initial presentation, and the blood drains from their face when I say, look, I'm somebody who cares about you, who wants to do you good, not harm. And this is just me figuring it out. Evaluate the website. Read the website's privacy policy. You know, the stuff that's in teeny, weeny, weeny writing? Read it. Read it. Read the code of conduct. And by the way, if you're on the website and you see something inappropriate, contact the webmaster and tell them there's something inappropriate on your website. You need to take it off right now. And you need to be bold and blatant, just like that. Don't say, hey, this looks kind of inappropriate. Say, this is inappropriate. And I'm a consumer. And, right? Customer's always right. Spend time online with your child. Ask your child to show you his or her social networking page. Unfamiliar friends and inappropriate content can factor in a dangerous equation. And establish rules for posting pictures online. And let me say this, by the way. I had a student who acted like she was literally going to die when her mom took away her computer. Her mom said, Mr. Miranda, I took your advice. Here's my advice. Children shouldn't be on social networking sites. That's my advice. From a family counselor, from somebody who deals with children, middle schoolers and high schoolers, and elementary schoolers. They shouldn't be on social networking sites. Guess what? Teach your kids to relate face to face. They're not going to die. My daughter always says to me, it's the worst day of my life. I'm like, baby, you're 6. How can that be? But I take something away from us when she says, this is the worst day of my life. And I've seen 11, 12, and 13, and 14-year-olds do just like a 6-year-old right in my office when the parents tell them. And I'll tell you why. For 2 reasons. Number 1, that's how they communicate and interact. And number 2, it's an addiction thing. These kids are addicted to this stuff. You don't believe me? Go to the Walmart. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen them? I've seen adults doing this too. With their cell phones, pushing the carts, pushing and they stop what they're doing, You're addicted. You're addicted. It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. When we have to tell people at church, please turn your cell phones off, and the pastor's preaching and you hear, beep, 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 and someone's, turn it off. What do we do with our cell phones? We're okay. You're not going to die. Turn it off. So don't let them get on it. That's my counsel. But you make your own decisions. MySpace safety tips. Recommend that minimum age of 16 for participation in an online community. Generally, children younger than 16 are not mature enough to handle the opportunities and challenges of social networking. I want to say this about that age. I don't like that number. New research is now showing that people's brains don't stop developing until they're in their mid-20s. You hearing me? Which means I don't think 15-year-olds should be driving a 2,500-pound weapon. I mean, a vehicle. You remember, 2 weeks ago? The big train accident? He was texting a bunch of teenagers. Why was a grown person texting a bunch of teenagers? Now, if they find out that maybe this was his parent, his child's friends, my red flag went up when I heard the story. CNN.com, I said, why was this guy texting teenagers every day? They said, I know, he's probably a pedophile. I said, yeah, he's probably a pedophile. Why are you texting teenagers at work? Number 1, you're addicted. And number 2, that's just what you do. I mean, people died because of this person texting. So to me, 20-something-year-olds, they need to change that. So to me, you should be in your mid-20s before you start dealing with all that craziness, because research has shown that kids can't process through consequences. That's why they do a lot of dangerous things. That's why they do skateboarding. You don't see a lot of people our age doing skateboarding because we know better. I mean, you get on a little board, a little piece of wood this big with 4 wheels, and you're going to slip off from it. I went ice skating with my daughter. Against my better judgment, and the Holy Spirit was saying, no, don't do it. And I was like, no, stop. I want to relate to my daughter. And I was like, zzz. And she was like, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, oh. I said, baby, call Dr. Fromm, my chiropractor. Call my chiropractor. I was hurting. Don't begin an open conversation about your teen's social networking experience. Try to establish a context for discussion that is not combative or accusing. And if they get all upset, Mom, Dad, I'm 16 now. And you know what I say? Age doesn't matter. It's all about maturity. If you don't show me that you're trustworthy, regardless of your age, because I know a lot of people my age who aren't trustworthy, age doesn't matter. So when a child throws that up, they're usually not trustworthy. If they have to say, well, I'm 18 now, and I'm 16. Sorry, I'm still the parent. This isn't a democracy. What I say goes. I love your point of view, but in the end, you got to do what I tell you to do. You're the parent. You're not their pal. You can be their pal when they get in their 20s and 30s. Right now, you're the parent. Your job is to keep them alive, literally. Keep them alive. Set the expectation that only people they know there it is right there, in real life should be on their friends list. And I know that this flies in the face of what a lot of people say. Oh, you need to let your children be themselves. No, you don't. If you're a farmer and you plant corn, do you let it be itself? Or do you go out there and weed and do what you're supposed to do to keep it growing? You can't plant flowers and just let them be themselves. They'll grow up in a tangle. Kids they're not adults, they're kids. They need us, they need us parents. And know your children's passwords, screen names, and account information. Remove online privileges if it becomes a problem. Don't think twice about it. Just do it. At another last resort, consider installing keystroke capturing software for your family's computer. And once again, keystroke capturing software was created by the CIA and the NSA because they wanted to see what people were doing. And of course, lovely, we have brought it into our day-to-day operations. But look at this. These are MySpace cases. Social networking. Look at this. 14-year-old Judy Kajust found strangled and naked in Newark, New Jersey, garbage bin. 16-year-old girl was attacked by a 37-year-old man who read her profile on MySpace and tracked her down on an after-school job. 17-year-old college freshman was murdered by a man who found her info at myspace.com. 33-year-old Houston, California firefighter was arrested for having sex with a 16-year-old boy he met on myspace.com. It happens. How to surf MySpace. Best resolution is simply for a youth not to establish a personal blog. Don't do it. MySpace Private allows members to control others' access to their profiles. Let teens read of the dangers of MySpace and similar websites for themselves, since teens can be skeptical of parental advice. Now see, that's what I do with kids. Listen, these kids who watch, all those horror movies and stuff, Saw and all that craziness and all that nastiness and filth and garbage, the movie makers don't make it for people our age. We don't watch that stuff. They make it for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And you'd be amazed when these kids list their top 3 movies, you'd be amazed at the stuff they list on here. And so I share this information with them because they do watch, craziness like Law and Order and SVU and all these things that are, filth. And I share this information with them. And parents say, I can't share. Do you not know what your kids are watching? You think that they're chaste and, but the stuff that they're, not every kid is that way. But what I'm seeing more and more is a lot of kids will show 2 faces to their parents. One face to their friends and one face to their parents, or one face to their friends on MySpace and one face to their parents. So let them read the dangers of MySpace and similar websites. Here's some advice for new browsers. Become a member. Once logged on, click on a link, search. MySpace gives members several options for searching. To find your child, search using his or her email address. If that fails, search using the classmate finder option. Type in school's name and state, and then click on the school name. MySpace then allows you to refine your school search. Options include searching for current students or alumni. Make sure when adjusting the between ages criteria to have generous search criteria. Many high school students inflate their age. Many middle school students inflate their age, saying they're 21 when they're actually 16 or younger. So you need to search, and I don't know about you, but the older I get, the younger I want to put myself, It's only kids who are young who want to seem old, and when you get older, you want to seem younger. That's kind of the way it works. Scroll down and you'll see thumbnail pictures of MySpace profiles. Click on the picture and you'll be taken to my teen's MySpace page. Not every teen links to his high school, but if you get onto the MySpace of one student, chances are they've linked to other students at the school. You can find these by clicking on the link, View All Friends. Once on a person's MySpace, an interesting place to look is the View More Pics link. And by the way, some of these pictures will knock your socks off, which is right under the photo on the left side of the screen. This is where members post photos and other members comment on them. Warning signs. This child may be hiding discs, or they may be hiding the little thumb drives. Too much time online or online late at night. Picture files taking up a lot of storage space on computer. Unusually sexually curious or sexually active for their age. Unusual charges on your credit card. Computer screen quickly changes when parent walks in room. Youth becomes very secretive or defensive. Recommendations if your child has been sexually exploited. Believe them. Now, research has shown that primary schoolers and people under the age of 4, 4 and 5, a lot of their stuff, because I was a forensic child interviewer, that's what I did. I would bring in the dolls and I would talk to them right after they made a report like this, and that was, I don't do that anymore. Once again, it was just too hard for me to do it. As a parent, I couldn't do it. But believe them. They don't make up stories like this. There's no way that they can. Believe your child. Commend your child for telling you, because, remember, a child is usually telling, usually either adults are saying, well, this is the way adults love other adults. This is the way that I love you. And once again, they don't know any better. That's their template. They don't know to say no, or they know there's something wrong, but they may be receiving a threat from an adult, or sometimes not an adult, maybe someone, an older child. Maybe someone who's in their late teens or early teens. You find some of that too happening. And so they're going against, someone may be threatening them. Your parents are going to, they're not going to love you anymore if you say this, or I'm going to kill you or kill your family. These kids are really, they're going against all of that. So you need to praise them for telling you. You don't need to get on to them. If your child feels guilty or at fault, try to alleviate self-blame. Temper your own reaction. Don't freak out because that child's going to close up like a clam. Try to be calm and reassuring. And then EIE resource list, protectkids.com. Recommendations: report suspected illegal activity to local police and the cyber tip line, 1-800-843-5673, or you can dial 911 and you can report it then. Locate a specialized agency or professional to help you with your child or family. They're called child advocacy centers in Georgia. We actually have one being built in Cartersville where I live. There's one in South Georgia, there's one in Central Georgia, there's one in Atlanta, and there's one in Rome, Georgia, which is northwest from where we live. But that's all they do. It's kind of a one-stop shopping for a child who's been sexually molested. They bring in police officers, assistant district attorneys, psychologists, psychiatrists, and literally they just meet with them one time, and they get the story one time, because research shows the more a kid tells a story, the more convoluted it becomes. So you really want to capture it when it's fresh. So you locate that agency, and if you're not sure, just contact the counselor. Contact a licensed professional counselor. Contact any family child welfare agency like DFACS in Georgia or anybody else. They really are there to try to help kids. If your child has been physically or sexually abused, locate a physician with experience in evaluation or a child advocacy center who can complete a forensic interview. And you can ask your family physician or physician at an emergency room to do what's called a rape kit, R-A-P-E, a rape kit. And they'll take the clothes off, they'll do a swab to make sure that there's nothing in the vagina or in the anus. They'll look for micro abrasions or perforations, and then they'll do all of that for you. And I really am sorry that I'm having to discuss this with you all, but that's the day and age we live in. And that's the end. Now, are there any questions? Yes? You may.
Okay. I would travel the world and tell this story if it would save one other child. I really would. And I know most of you know me here, so this is just it. A lot of you don't know this story. But when my oldest daughter was 15 years old, I have 5 children, and I noticed that she changed in the way she interacted with me and with her other siblings. And I had never experienced, the teen rebellion, and I thought, well, this must be what everybody's talking about. But I had homeschooled my kids, and we had a very good relation. It wasn't like, she was in a room talking on the phone to other teens and this kind of stuff. I mean, we lived, worked, played, studied, did everything together. Okay. Her brothers were about 3 at the time, and she had gone to school her freshman year, and she was 15. And one night, her dad came to me, and he said, "Would you like to see what he has been into on the computer?" And I said, "Yeah." Now, she wrote stories. She liked to write stories, and she'd spend a lot of time at the computer writing stories. The computer sat right smack in the middle of the den. You could see the screen. The person working on the computer had their back to the rest of the den, so the screen was facing everybody. We did school there, we did piano practice there, we did everything there, okay? So it was right in the middle of everything. When he pulled up what she had been doing, it just took all the wind out of my sails. And I'm going to try to make this short, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She had asked my permission a couple of months before to get into a chat room so that she could talk with. They were three friends. We as parents had gone to school together at Shenandoah, at GCA, at Southern University. Our kids, they were all within a month of each other in their age. They had grown up together, moved to Virginia, lived in Georgia. So I said, sure, because, hey, we didn't have to pay for the phone bill. I was so stupid. I was so ignorant. And this has only been, about 6 years ago, okay? So when he pulled up and we read, she was communicating with two males in this chat room. Now, she was also communicating with her friends, but there was two males. One, I truly do believe, from reading everything, was a teenage boy. I truly do believe he was. The other one, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he was an adult pedophile. There is no doubt in my mind. There was no doubt in her father's mind. We didn't say anything to her that night. She went to school the next morning. I went upstairs and I went through her room. And when I say I went through her room, I didn't take the dust cloth and the vacuum sweeper. I went through that child's room. I found CDs that I didn't know existed out there of music that had been recommended to her by these boys, okay? I found her journal, and I went through her journal, and in the beginning of her journal, which was probably about a year and a half, she talked about her brothers and about her younger sisters and about, her dad and about me and, the fun things we did as a family and how she and Mom had had this talk and, on and on and on. And it just got a little bit more sour and a little bit more sour and a little bit more sour till in the end of this journal was 4-letter words: I hate my mom. I can't wait to get out of this house. It was pure hate. It's all it was. And her dad is a surgeon, and I called him and he was in the operating room, and I said, if your next case is not an emergency, you've got to come home. So he came home, and I showed him this filth. And I said to him, we have got to do something. Well, when she came in that evening from school, we had a long talk with her. We told her we had found everything. We showed her everything. She was beyond furious. You talk about hate. Oh, she hated me then, let me tell you. Her dad made her rip her journal up and burn it. He made her take the CDs and bust them. We took away the computer, we took away her clock radio, we took away the CD player, we took away cassette, we took away anything that could do anything except provide nourishment for her mouth. And that night, she stood at the corner of the fireplace and she looked me right in the face and she said, I hate you and I will never forgive you as long as I live for reading my journal. Now, if you'd like for somebody to hurt you, just give them the biggest knife you have in your kitchen, let them stick it in you, and then just twist it and twist it. And I just looked at her, and by the grace of God, I said, you don't have to love me. God put me here to be your mother, and your first, and your friend second. It was very rough, and it was very rocky for a very long time in our home. And things kind of started to cool off and simmer down. The next year, she went away to school at GCA, and she lived with some friends down in Calhoun instead of being in the dorm. And I had a long talk with her before she went, and I said, you will now have access to the computer. You'll have access to whatever you want. There is nothing more that I can do except pray for you, which I have done every day of your life since you were born. And she said, oh, Mom, don't worry about me. I've learned my lesson. I'm fine. Well, as a parent, you want to believe that. But let me tell you, as a parent, you don't want to believe that your child can get into what we discovered. You don't want to believe it. Thanksgiving rolled around, and I was bringing her home from school for home leave. We were in the middle of Knoxville, and it was pouring the rain, and we started having this conversation about other things. And all of a sudden, she said to me, she said, Mom, taking the computer away from me was the very best thing you could ever have done. I kid you not, I about wrecked. I almost wrecked because my greatest hope and desire was that when she was grown, had children of her own, even if I wasn't alive to know it, that in her heart she would say, my mom and dad did the very best thing for me. So I want to tell you, and I wish this auditorium was full of people with kids. If you have got kids, you cannot be too careful with that internet. And I want to add to his list, if you see behavioral changes in your child, you dig to the bottom of it to know why. Because these people poison their minds. I mean, in her journal, I hate my mom. You know, I can't wait to get out of this house. You know, there's something wrong with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment or a question? Yes.
I was wondering, and I was told that when children research the White House, if they don't type in whitehouse.gov, they get a porn site.
That's true.
Yeah, so I thought we better mention that because they're innocent kids doing research.
Also Nickelodeon and any of the websites, PBS, Nickelodeon, Disney. Actually, these pornographers, what they do is they hire cryptographers. Do you know what a cryptographer is? They're somebody who they solve puzzles for a living, and they make puzzles and they solve puzzles. Now, I'm not talking about jigsaw puzzles. I'm talking about they find ways to decode things and to encode things. They actually hire these people to work on their staff to break through a lot of these filters and to find ways around these things. And they, it's something as simple as, you know, White House spelled with a Y will bring up, you know, something inappropriate. Nickelodeon spelled inappropriately. They misspell it any way they can, and all those things they tie them to a pornography page. And they understand. They understand. And I spoke with a pornographer about 1.5 years ago on the phone. And you know what he told me? He said, I don't have the internet in my home. I don't watch that garbage. I don't let my kids watch that garbage. I don't have a TV in my home. We read, and I'm very selective. And I said, how do you sleep at night? I mean, he never answered the question, but I asked him about his practices. I say, what is your annual operating cost just for your staff members? He has 2 cryptographers on file. He has one who designs ways to get around, and he has another one who finds ways to type in different websites and to basically lure and grab children to look at the pornography. His annual operating cost, just for salaries, this is just salaries, $20 million. Just for salaries. These are just 2 cryptographers. Now, he has other people that work for him, but these people used to work for the CIA and the NSA. And he told me to my face, he said, yeah, Mr. Miranda, you're right. I don't allow it in my home, but you know what? It's afforded us a wonderful lifestyle, and we do this, and we go traveling here, and we go traveling there. And I said, are you a Christian, sir? He said, no, I'm not. I said, well, if you jump out of a plane without a parachute, you're still going to fall. And I said, you're going to find that come Judgment Day, that you're going to have to answer for all that you've done. I was just shocked. Because he said it was just like he was talking about the weather. I mean, no feeling. And I said, you know, you're poisoning children. I mean, you're causing people to be addicted for life. And he said, and this is what he said, well, it's their choice. We live in a free society. I said, no, addiction is not a choice. When something controls you, it no longer is a choice. And you're adding to that. He had nothing to say. He hung up the phone on me. But that's the mindset of the world that we're living in. And you've got to, you know, gone are the days of responsible organizations. You know, where people really cared about the consumer. That's not the case anymore. You've got to care for your children. Yes?
I went into the computer, and under the security, I put no sex, no violence, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
The parental controls?
Right.
Uh-huh.
The next day I went in, and I brought up pornography, and it brought up 3 million sites. That doesn't do it.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is that, to me, it's not just the computer, it's any media whatsoever. A skateboarding magazine, I had a student who was going through a skateboarding magazine. He sat in my office and we were talking, and this is a skateboarding magazine. On the back, there was a woman in a brassiere. I mean, there she was, and she was holding up some skateboard wheels. And I said, what does that have to do with skateboard wheels? He said, Mr. Miranda, I have no idea. And he said, I don't like looking at that. He goes, that's gross. Now, thank goodness he was 10, so he still had, right? Add 2 years to that, and he's, you know, hubba hubba, you know, he's looking at it. But still he was, and I said, you mind if I just rip this out? He goes, no. And I went, rip, and I ran it through. I have a crosscut shredder. Wah, I use that thing all the time. Wah, shredded it through. And I said, this stuff is, you know, you don't need to be looking at this stuff. And, you know, the skateboarders had little skulls on them and stuff. But it's, any media, you need to be so careful about TV, magazines, anything. Put parental controls. I'm a big fan of no TV. of no internet. I mean, really. Now, you might call me, old-fashioned. I'm 37. I can't be old-fashioned. I'm only 37. But I believe that we need to do as much as we can to protect our children. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to slowly and lovingly and very carefully expand their horizons and let them see people with different worldviews, different beliefs and different denominations. But we don't need to just throw them to the wolves and say, well, they're teenagers, that's just what teenagers do, he. And I've seen parents who say that to me. And I say, come back and see me in a year from now with that same attitude, and your child will be out of control. Out of control. Any other comments? Yes, you want the microphone? Will you hand that back to him?
It's good to hear somebody address the internet, because the internet is not going away. It's going to be there. It's a good feature. This is the parent side. The parent is like the choir. Now, do you know anything that's being done to talk to the youth? Right now, the youth who are here in the morning, they are not here, and they are not hearing. Most of them, I believe most of the kids do it out of peer pressure and ignorance. Do you know of any program, any church that's going ahead, having conversations with the youth in their youth meetings in the church? Do you know anything like that?
There are a couple of, will you get that microphone? There are a couple of really, really good websites. One of them is the XXXchurch.com website, xxxchurch.com. They do a blog where they talk about pornography and the issues related to that. A wonderful book is by, I think his name is Craig Gross, Gross, wrote a book called Dirty Little Secret. It's about pornography and all what pornographers don't want you to understand. It's a wonderful book that I tell teens to read, and it's written where teens can understand it. It's kind of he writes like he's an adult, but he writes like a teenager, so they kind of understand the secrets. I also do some presentations. I go to churches, individuals. I go into a lot of public schools and private schools, church schools, and do presentations on pornography addiction. I just trained the pastors at the Georgia-Cumberland conference 2 summers ago, I think I trained all the pastors on this issue. But there's also a company called Aware, and their website is Illusions, ILLUSIONS, program.net. And bar none is the best program that they have. It's a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation. You pop it in, and it shows children, it's meant for teenagers, they've got one for teenagers and one for parents, on the dangers of pornography and all the secrets that the pornographers use, all the marketing that they do, everything and it's a wonderful presentation. I do it, and it costs $150, I think, for the presentation, and you can run it as many times as you want to. It's not like a site license, you know what I mean? You just run it as many times as you want. They have a presentation for teenagers, and then they have one for parents. And I'm part of the treatment, hang on here, it's a big long name, Bartow Task Force for Pregnancy Prevention, Pregnancy Prevention Task Force, and we're getting into the community and doing this presentation as well now. And it's a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation with interviews of they're not actors, they're real life people, teenagers, husbands, wives, who talk about their lives, how their lives have been ruined or affected by pornography and sex addiction. It's a powerful resource, and Aware is a Christian company. They're what they call an abstinence-only education company. So they don't teach people how to use condoms or any of that stuff. It's just straightforward. They teach abstinence, but it's meant to be used in the public schools, so it's appropriate for any church. It's a really, really wonderful program. You can have me come out to your church if you like. I don't mind doing that. And it's I do. They actually did the parent presentation because I called them up. I do a lot of consulting work. I called them up and I said, listen, I'm having more parents showing up with these teen things than teenagers. And they said, well, we'll start working on one for the parents, and they did. And it's just wonderful. It's called Illusions. And their website, even if you don't purchase the PowerPoint, go to the website. The website has facts on it. It's facts for community members, facts for educators, facts for parents, and facts for teenagers. And it's the same facts, but they're presented in a different way. It's a wonderful website. Illusionsprogram.net is the website. You had a question?
Your materials, does it have all that you put up here on the screen?
Yes, I will take and forward the information to you. I don't have a problem with that at all. You know, I'm not one that gets all upset about copyrights and all this craziness, because it's all about protecting our children. Period. And I want to think that if there was something like this, or maybe if there was somebody I could have talked to, then again, in the 80s, we didn't have that kind of knowledge of brain research and like we have now, but that's why I'm so hardcore about protecting our kids, because if by my presentation, one person is saved, that's all worth it. You know what I mean? And I don't want the craziness that I went through in my life to be wasted. And if I didn't share, it would be, have been a waste. So, any other questions, comments? All right. Well, let's have a word of prayer and get you all to some other activities this afternoon. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this time that we've been able to spend discussing this really, really important issue of just the internet and internet safety. Lord, I pray that you will be with the parents and be with the grandparents and be with those who love our kids and our teens. Lord, help us to make discerning decisions. Help us to have discernment and make wise decisions just about the things that we choose to do, how we choose to interact with our teenagers and our children, and Lord, about the changes that we need to make in our own lives, Lord. We can't expect to have two sets of rules, one for our kids and one for ourselves, Lord. That's not the way that you want us to be. You don't want us to be hypocrites, Lord. You want us to be truthful with one another. And so, Lord, I pray today that if there's something that was said here today, if there's a change that needs to happen, Lord, I pray that someone will take a piece of paper and write down the changes that need to happen, and they'll when they get home this evening or tomorrow, that they'll make those changes as soon as possible. Lord, we are living in the last days, and we know that as time continues on, that more and more filth is going to be piped into our homes, Lord, and the devil will seek to destroy and to weaken our families, not by something outward blatant, but by something very simple and very suggestive. And Lord, we pray that you might help us to be aware of all the things that are happening in our children's lives, Lord. We pray that you will be with us now, and you continue to be with us wherever we may go. And all these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.